I think it's one of those things where, like, did they go over the top with him? Yes. Is he going over the top with the accusation and saying this is probably somewhere in the middle? It's like one of those things. And
welcome to the BXG Podcast, the podcast where pop culture and nerd culture meet at the nexus of the universe and are melded as seamlessly as Yakuza and 80s basketball. I am one of your hosts, Brenton Beslick, alongside my co-host, the Gaijin himself, Greg Filson. How are you tonight, Greg?
I'm doing okay. Not great, not 100, but I'm ready to rock and roll. I love what we got here tonight is a combination of things I really enjoy. Just a good old fashioned like crime drama review, and then just winning time, just basketball in the 80s, which is just I love any of that stuff. So I'm ready to rock and roll. How are you, Brent? I'm
doing all right. I'm here. Same as always. Undeterred, unbowed, unbent, unbroken. That's a Game of Thrones reference. And if you want to educate yourself more on Game of Thrones,
if you do want to do that,
we have
George R. R. Martin can still write fan fiction of his own stuff. Just want to let people know, he just can't write the actual fiction of his own things.
Facts, big facts. What is all that You're really crackly. Oh, that's what it was, because you had one of your earphones.
I had the wrong. Yeah, I'm sorry.
Yeah, you're cool. There's a lot of crackling.
Yeah.
I feel like there's a song about crackling. So I had something of mild import, but I don't remember what it was. Doctor Strange.
Oh yeah.
We reviewed that. It's not up. It's not up yet. The podcast episode's up, but the video's not up yet because I've had some computer issues. But with that being said, the BXG Podcast publishes every Friday at 9 a.m. on Podbean, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon Music, Google Podcasts, and other podcast services around the globe. You catch us on our social media, Facebook.com/BXG Podcast, Instagram at BXG Podcast, at GTFills, at Y2B, Twitter at BXG Podcast, at GTFilson, at Y2B. And you can join us over on our Discord. Come hang out. Drop some memes.
Yeah,
talk about meme friendly movies. We are very meme friendly. Good memes. This is episode 105. So number 105 of the BXG Podcast. And the first thing I think that we'll talk about tonight is winning time.
Let's do it.
I have I'm not sure about the yellow on yellow background that I have going on. It's a little bit, it might be a bit much for the eyes. But Winning Time is the story of the rise of the LA Lakers Dynasty, beginning with Magic Johnson's rookie year after Dr. Jerry Buss purchases the team. The season is fraught with perils from both inside the locker room and out, as the team must come together to make a run at a title that will save Dr. Buss's investment. John C. Reilly stars as Jerry Buss and some of the other folks that appear in this television show. Quincy Isaiah stars as Magic Johnson, Jason Clarke as Jerry West, Gabby Hoffman as Claire Rothman, Hadley Robinson, Jeannie Buss, Devon Nixon as Stormin Norman Nixon, Solomon Hughes as Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. There's a lot of people.
There's a lot of people. Yeah.
Trying to find some. Adrian Brody is Pat Riley, Tracy Letts is Jack McKinney, and Jason Segel as Paul Westhead. There's some others that pop up here and there, but that's kind of the main people, I would say. So, Winning Time, story of the Los Angeles Lakers. We'll get into a little bit of the controversy surrounding the show after we talk about it a little bit, but what did you think of this sort of biopic, faux documentary type situation from executive producer Adam McKay, I believe, executive producer.
The number one thing I'll say about it's entertaining, and that's the thing that I mean, it's the Showtime Lakers. This is before they are the Showtime Lakers, right. But like that's what you want. Kind of this is what you want though. Is it's entertaining, it's a little fast, and it's a little loose, much like that team was. I mean, is it a perfect show? No, it is not a perfect show. And I have my faults with it for sure. But what I like about it is I thought the cast was really well done. I think like everybody kind of, as well as you could do with something like that. I mean, right. The actor who plays Magic Johnson reminds you of Magic Johnson because he's got that nice big smile and he's like, very like you're rooting for him. Even if you're not rooting for him, you're rooting for him. And, even like the side characters, like the guy, the actor who plays Larry Bird. Yeah, he doesn't look exactly like Larry Bird, but he has the asshole that that Larry Bird is just kind of like oozing through him. And I thought that was really great. And so I thought the casting was just super well done. The story had its issues. It's based off a book by Jeff Pearlman. It's not taken directly from that. That's the one thing is Jeff Pearlman's book is based off of fact. And then this is a fictionalized version of things based off fact. I think the one reason you do that is you just want things to be entertaining and you're putting in an 8-episode TV show. It's hard to make that a book that's, 300 pages.
Was it say 10 episodes?
10 episodes. I'm sorry. 10. I'm sorry. The other show we're doing is 8. 10 episodes where it's like to put that in there and you want to keep people watching. You don't want to get into those slogs. You want to have the villain, the anger, all those different things. So I understand why it went that direction. The criticisms that I will have of it, I know Adam McKay does this, but breaking the fourth wall, there was a little too much of it for me at sometimes. There were some episodes where I felt like Jerry Buss broke the fourth wall like every 2 minutes. And it actually like drove me nuts and made me like dislike certain things about that a lot. Cause I'm just like, I don't need it all the time. I just want to see the storyline. But overall, I thought the show had a good entertainment value. And I look forward to it for sure. Do I think it's, the greatest thing ever done? No, I don't. And that's crazy for anyone to think that, but I do think it accomplished its goal.
I think that between this, which is obviously, as you mentioned, a sort of characterized version of this team a little bit, maybe a little bit of seasoning and salt and pepper added for entertainment value. But between this and The Last Dance, I think that there's kind of a thirst for more sports-based television. I know like Friday Night Lights, for example, had a pretty decent run on network TV with Kyle Chandler and Michael B. Jordan in the latter seasons. And I just think that there's something about that. Another one, and I joke a lot with our friend Dale about this because we used to watch it freshman year of college, but was Playmakers. Right. And the NFL shut that show down because it peeled back the curtain and kind of showed the ugly side of the NFL. And I think that's part of the reason why Hard Knocks does so well, year in and year out. But I do think that there is kind of a thirst for this. And this is such a, number one, it's a very interesting and very important era of NBA basketball, arguably the most important era. Yeah. And a lot of people, would point to the early 90s with Jordan and stuff like that. But I don't think that without this team and then also Bird and the Celtics, that we maybe even get Air Jordan, because the year before the finals that took place the year before this season that's depicted was broadcast on tape delay. It wasn't even live. Right. And you can go back and read there's plenty of books about this time period. I think probably the most well-regarded is the one that Johnson and Bird kind of co-opted with a ghostwriter.
Jackie McMullen.
Yeah. What's it called? Yeah. Like When We Were Legends or something like that?
Yeah. Yeah.
Is that it?
Yeah. I believe that's correct. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, we'll kind of get into the characters here, but like you said, I looked forward to it once I got caught up on it because I didn't start it until about halfway through the season. But once I got caught up, I looked forward to it every week. And it's not like there's spoilers. Everybody knows how this season ends, right? It's not fictionalized in that way. We know, but it was kind of interesting to see some of the interactions. And I didn't know about like the coaching situation that happened with Jack McKinney and the bike accident, and how that kind of shook out and would eventually lead to Reilly taking over and stuff like that. So it was kind of interesting from a historical standpoint. I didn't love the way I know Larry Bird was an asshole, but they really hammed that up a little bit. And I think they
hammed up a lot of things though. So I think that's kind of it too.
Par for the course. Yeah. So let's just kind of get into, we won't go through everybody, but maybe some of the, 3 or 4 more important characters. We'll start with John C. Reilly as Dr. Jerry Buss, the owner of the Los Angeles Lakers. What did you think of John C. Reilly's performance?
I thought it was good. I think the one thing that's sort of funny is this is the show that ended the relationship between Adam McKay and Will Ferrell. Because Adam McKay didn't even ask Will Ferrell to audition for this. And that made Will Ferrell upset. So that's just one thing to kind of point out about it. I mean, I thought John C. Reilly as Jerry Buss was a fairly good depiction, especially of that era. I mean, the only thing I really didn't like was all the constant breaking of the fourth wall, but
you said that,
the bombasticness of Jerry Buss and the ego and all those things I thought was really perfect. I mean, I thought he was just, it's John C. Reilly. I mean, he kills it every single time, no matter what he does. It's just sort of his deal. And I thought that was definitely the case here. It's not his fault he's breaking the fourth wall. That's what's written. That's what's done in the thing.
Right.
But I thought he was great.
Yeah, I really liked him. I certainly can see him probably being, nominated for, since this is going to be a limited series. I could see him certainly being nominated for an Emmy for Best Actor. I think that's not outside the realm of possibility. I thought he pulled the character off really well. He's when he does comedy, and I would consider this almost comedy, his role.
Sure.
Yeah. A little bit more slapsticky, and this was a little bit more serious and certainly narcissistic, but I thought he did really well. Before we move to Magic Johnson, I just want to talk a little bit about Jason Clarke and his portrayal of Jerry West, or what Jerry West might see less of a portrayal and more of a betrayal, as he's willing to go to court because he's so upset that he was portrayed kind of as a out of control, his quote, out of control, intoxicated rageaholic. What did you think about Jason Clarke in his role as Jerry West, the logo?
I mean, it definitely felt over the top just watching it. I mean, a lot of stuff, but also Jerry West, I mean, I know he's gonna, he's fighting this, all these things, but he's also known as kind of a curmudgeonly guy.
Sure.
I mean, he's not the happiest guy in the world, and that's well documented. That is 100% well documented. Did he act like this? I mean, I think it's one of those things where obviously he's not going to admit to acting like this. He wouldn't want to look like this. And then people that, were around him are not going to say, yeah, he was just like this. So who's to say? But then again, it is, like I said before, it's a TV show and you have to bring out that entertainment. And it's if you're doing a show like this and that Jerry West is a bit of a curmudgeon and has a little bit of an anger issue, which these are all documented. He was pissed after he won the championship.
Right.
And so these are things that about him, they're just there and people know. And so I think it's one of those things where did they go over the top with him? Yes. Is he going over the top with the accusation and saying this is probably somewhere in the middle? It's one of those things. And, but I thought his actual portrayal of it was, fun. I think if you're going for that, he plays that role of being this guy that's, the game's kind of beyond him at this point. And that's just the way it's going. And I thought he did a good job.
Quincy Isaiah as Magic Johnson, and Magic also had some criticisms saying that he was upset because none of the actual Lakers who are still around were invited to participate or give feedback or anything like that. What did you think of Quincy Isaiah as Magic Johnson?
I mean, he had that feel of Magic Johnson. He's not, I definitely would say the acting was whatever with him. I mean, it was astounding, but he had the feel of Magic Johnson. I think just anytime, I don't know. To me, it's when you see like an editorial in a magazine written about the person by that person. Like when Beyonce writes something, like I don't want the Lakers that were in this time to have a part in this really, because they're going to shine the greatest light in the world. It's like, I don't want to sound like rude about Magic Johnson, but he did things. There's a reason why he ended up the way he did. I mean, like this isn't shocking. Like he was known for cheating on his wife. I mean, this is stuff that actually happened and he's admitted to later on. To say like, he didn't like the portrayal of things. It's like, hindsight's 2020, and yes, you probably feel bad about going back on this, but these are things that actually happened. I mean, it's just, I understand this idea is that we want people to look at it like this, and it's like, but nobody looks at them like this anymore. This is how, if you look at the show and when it was actually supposed to take place, it's like, you don't look at Magic Johnson like that anymore. However, you looked at him, whatever, but like, there are things about him that are not the greatest thing in the world. Like he was not the greatest person. And none of these people are. I am not either. I'm not saying that I am either, but I'm just pointing out, like, if you can't look at yourself in the mirror 20 years ago and like be like, well, that's how I was, that's not how I am, then that's
40 years ago.
Or 40 years ago. I'm sorry, 40 years ago. If you can't be like, I'm not that person, and you're so mad about that, then that's something inside of you that's a problem and not what somebody is doing. To me, that's how I look at
it. Solomon Hughes, who played Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, this was his first major role.
Okay.
Solomon Hughes, and just on the Kareem side of things, he the real life Kareem said that they had taken solid facts of the story and were deliberately dishonest in their portrayal. And he specifically cited Jerry West, the Jerry West character. He didn't really have anything to say so far as I've seen about how he was portrayed. Kareem is known as being, as you said, a bit of a curmudgeon himself. Didn't really have a whole lot of friends within the league, didn't have a whole lot of close associates as some of these other guys who, he was kind of isolated, and he kind of did, he did that to himself, and it's well documented. But what did you think of Solomon Hughes as Kareem? I thought he did an excellent job.
Oh, I did too. I honestly think of everyone of actors we didn't know.
Yeah.
I thought he did the best, especially what we know about Kareem and stuff that even Kareem's admitted. I mean, this is new to anyone on that end of things. Kareem, all he does is defend Jerry West. And and this is, maybe deep diving into basketball too much and not really. All a lot of people do is defend Jerry West because he failed so much, but he failed, but also by getting to the finals a billion times.
Right.
It's like, it's one of these things where it's like, is it failure? I don't know. I mean, these are teams that, the teams that were playing at the time, these Celtics teams were insane, especially compared to the rest of the league. I mean, and I'm not going to compare eras. That doesn't matter. At the time, these teams were insanely good. And there's this whole thing about defending Jerry West. There just always has been. I mean, if you've read anything on Bill Simmons has talked about it. I mean, you look at, I think in our, as our age group, Bill Simmons is probably the person you think of when you think of basketball writing. He did write a 800-page book on it, and we went and saw him and met him because of this.
Yes.
And that's talked about. And there's this thing about defending Jerry West. And I think it almost comes to the thing where you defend something so much, then it's like, because it's wrong. Like, there's just that thing of like, when you get so defensive about something, you obviously have something bad about back on that. And I know that's not, exactly what you asked me, but I just want to point out, I do think there's a little too much too far, but on his portrayal of Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, I really liked it. I thought, like I said, I thought it was maybe the strongest performance based on, I know nothing about him. And then it was great. Like John C. Reilly, we know is a good actor, a great actor. So you're expecting him to be good. Sure. But having never seen this guy in my life playing Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, a known curmudgeon, but also a very stoic figure, I thought that played really well. Yeah.
Tracy, let's just take these kind of last three together. Tracy Letts, Jason Segel, and Adrian Brody as Jack McKinney, Paul Westhead, and Pat Reilly, respectively.
I thought all of them were like overtop versions of themselves, and that's where I'm at with that. I think it was just over the top with every one of them, but I think that was the idea.
I didn't know anything about Jack McKinney because I don't know if he ever came back and coached after his bike accident, but he was the assistant of Dr. Jack Ramsey in Portland. Great book, The Breaks of the Game. If you want to kind of look into that Portland team a little bit more. But this was kind of in Showtime in general, and he was sort of the early architect of what would become Showtime. But this is kind of the space and pace and space game that we see in today's NBA.
Yep.
That a little bit more positionless basketball. I mean, they had Kareem, so you kind of have to cater to that a little bit more. But you really saw it at the end, Game 6 against the Sixers in the finals, where Magic 6'9" tips off at center, and they said, well, we're just, we can't keep up with these guys physically. We're just going to run them off the floor. And that's 7 seconds or less Suns. That's, the Warriors death lineup.
Yeah.
All of those things where now you regularly go onto the court as a team and your biggest guys, maybe 6'9", as opposed to these big Goliaths. So I did find that kind of interesting. Didn't really know much about Paul Westhead. So it's kind of cool to see his background. I mean, obviously, if you're a fan of the game, you know who Pat Reilly is. So, that's sort of
fancy dresser
there.
Cool dude.
Yeah.
Good coach.
Looks like he belongs in a Scorsese movie.
Oh, yeah. Can't believe he hasn't been in one, honestly.
Just as a cameo, even.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So what would you give this out of 10? I just actually real quick before you answer that, I do want to say that I really appreciated the way that the show was filmed and kind of that sort of like grainy, it gave it a more authentic feel, I thought.
Yeah, no, I really enjoy the show. Like I said, entertainment value, great. The flaws of it do definitely hurt it. I mean, like I said, but I would give this a 7.5. I mean, that to me, that means it's watchable, it's entertaining, it does what it's supposed to do. There are some misses.
I think I would say, and I think it's a 7, but if you are a basketball fan, it's like an 8.5. Because just like, that's what sucked me in. And I was like the first few episodes, I was like, come on, man, when are they going to get to actually like playing
basketball? Yeah.
Yeah. It was all set up. And I wasn't as interested as I wanted the X's and O's. You know what I mean?
What did you think of the basketball? Because that's always a thing in anything like this. What did you think of the basketball?
I thought that they reused a lot of cuts, and maybe made them from different angles to try to give it a different feel. But I didn't think it was great. I will say that I didn't think that was great. I thought that it was a little bit lackluster at times. And obviously this is an HBO thing, so you kind of expect movie theater quality. It is HBO.
Right.
But I would say like some recent basketball films, going back to like Glory Road or, I mean, hell, what else has been out in the last however many years?
Right.
Coach Carter. I didn't think that the scenes were quite on that level, but they were okay. I would say that they were okay. Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I would say. Okay. It's one of those things that anytime we watch a sport movie where we realize like you can look athletic, but being athletic is a different thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's just the thing.
I think that Quincy, Isaiah, and Solomon Hughes both, they felt enough like Magic and Kareem that it carried it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
definitely. Quincy definitely felt like he had dribbled a basketball before, and that was nice.
Yeah.
Sometimes you watch a basketball movie, and they don't look like they actually know how to dribble a basketball. So
yeah, that is factual. That's 100% facts. All right, let's move on to our next show, which is an HBO also.
It's our same show, but another TV show.
What?
It's our same show. I was just fancy.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah. It's the same. Yeah. Same episode. Calm down. God, you're like a heroin addict.
I know.
Tokyo Vice. Jake Adelstein, played by Ansel Elgort, is a gaijin or foreigner living and working at the largest newspaper in Tokyo at the turn of the 21st century. I was thinking about that the other day. I was like, people say the turn of the century, they still somehow mean the 1800s to the 1900s.
Right.
But there was another turn of the century.
There's another
22 years ago. He works there in his quest for journalistic integrity and writing a good story. He is forced to compromise some of his morals as he gets involved with corrupt police, an American hostess, and finds himself caught in the middle of a Yakuza clan war. Ken Watanabe co-stars in this crime drama set in Tokyo. Gregory.
I mean, after reading that line, I felt like my first few years at the Record Argus, corrupt police, American hostess, caught in the middle of the,
didn't realize you were caught
the Grogals or whatever.
The Grogans.
Grogans. Yeah. It's just like, it really brings me back. I will say I love this show. It's probably like a little bit of like the journalist in me is still in there.
Yep.
I actually got the book too. I'm going to read it here soon.
Oh, nice.
And I'm real excited about that. But I mean, if you're out there listening, you're a Michael Mann fan, as I am, one of my favorite directors, maybe could be in the argument of my favorite director. I love Michael Mann. Thief, Heat, just to name two of the absolute classics. Miami Vice, if you like that movie, which is just insane. Other ones are awesome too. I'm just naming a few that I really like. But it had that vibe of like the bad guys are really bad and the good guys aren't really that good either. And it's just everyone's kind of in this mush. And what do you do to not just get the story like he is as a journalist, but what do you do to like stay on that moral high ground? Do you have to dig a little deeper, and do you have to go on that other side to, get the story done right, or to get, anything done right? And it's just walking that fine line is so much of like what makes these kind of things so good, and where there's that mix of like what is good and bad. And so I thought it was just so well done. It makes your palms sweat a little bit with some of the situations. Especially in the last couple episodes, it feels like it fired it up and really got going. It just, to me, Spotlight to me is my favorite journalistic movie journalistic profile of something in the last 25 years, for sure. I think Spotlight is almost like a perfect movie. But to me, this was a really good balance of like what that takes to do that, and where you kind of have to feel. Sometimes you feel like you have to do something wrong to eventually do something right. Mm-hmm. And this to me had that feel, and it was just dirty enough. It was just dirty enough to feel gritty and great.
I think for me, what I really liked about this is, as Americans and watching American television and American cinema, we're very brought up on the Italian mafia being, we've got The Godfather, we've got Goodfellas, we've got The Sopranos. And it was really interesting to see that angle in a different country where you're kind of blending some of those crime syndicate type sort of, family-based organized crime themes, but also sort of blending that in with the culture in Japan, which is very much, you respect your elders and it's very honor-based and things like that. So to kind of see that, like, for example, getting into some of the characters a little bit, Sho Kasamatsu, who played Saito, who's sort of the character that you see the Yakuza through the eyes of. He's got a little bit of Christopher from The Sopranos to him. He's kind of that conduit into that world for you, but he also, he's got this love interest and he's trying to rise up through the ranks, but also there's like the whole thing of, being honorable to the person who recruited you, and then honorable to the sort of the head of the family in that territory or whatever. And I think that there's some parallels that can be drawn from a lot of these characters to characters that people are more familiar with.
Oh yeah.
And I think I think it was just interesting. It was just kind of like a fresh look on something that we've had so much of, like I said, with the Godfather movies, Goodfellas, The Departed, all of these sort of organized crime things. It's just kind of fresh to get that from another angle in a different part of the world, a world that a part of the world that I'm very fond of.
Yeah.
In terms of, themes and culture and things like that. So I really enjoyed it. I do think that there were some hangups. I had a few hangups. It was an 8-episode season. The middle episodes were kind of dry. I would say 5 and 6, I kind of almost fell out, like, I don't know. And then they picked back up in 7 and 8. But I do think part of it was they were kind of driving the story in a couple directions. And maybe this is just the journalist thing, is they kind of hit a wall and had to pivot.
Yeah, I was going to say, like, those are episodes I really enjoyed because it was like, oh, shit's hit the fan and now we have to do something different. And it was like more of that gritty underbelly of like what journalism can be. I mean, I joked around about like, what my time, working in the newspaper, but I mean, there is that stall where like actually where a lot of the wheels are turning, but you can't see it, it's, and that's what I actually really liked. I mean, it was sort of funny because I actually was watching that and I'm like, and I'm thinking to myself, I bet a lot of people think this is boring, but I was like loving it. Like I was like, this is, and that's fine. Because it's like, it's like any job that you, or anything you care about. Like if you care about it, like, then when you see something like that, you're like, oh, I get it. But if you don't, then it's just like, it can be a little mundane. I could understand exactly why you felt the way you did, Brenton. Yeah. But it was, for me, it was just like, oh, it like brought me back. It like, and I've had my ups and downs with that, but it brought me back to like those times where like that rush of doing that is like still something I can't really have in my life, which is like something I actually do miss.
Yeah. And I don't know if it was so much boring as it was almost as like the story kind of felt like it missed a beat. Like we were here and we're doing all these investigations and then something goes sideways. And now we're just like, they sidelined, like they put in, I would say, especially in the 5th and 6th episodes, they really put Jake on the sidelines. Yeah. And he was the character who's driving this, who, this is based on the memoirs of Jake Alderstein. So for him to be kind of left out like that as they sort of pivoted to some different characters, and this is going to be an ongoing thing. I didn't know if this was going to be a limited or if this was going to be an ongoing thing. Certainly the way they ended it. That there's going to be a second season. We won't get too deep. I think we'll just kind of talk about the 4 main characters. First and foremost, Ansel Elgort, which is what a name that is, as Jake Adelstein, the Missouri-based Gaijin who becomes the first foreigner to work at the largest newspaper in Tokyo. And again, this show's based on his memoir, Tokyo Vice, an American reporter on the police beat in Japan. So you can check that out if you are into books.
Yeah, and I will be.
What did you think of this character and how Mr. Elgort, who's probably most famous for Baby Driver, I would say?
Yeah, and also he was in West Side Story. There's stuff about him in that is not great, and whatever. It's he was alleged of doing things that were bad. I don't want to leave
Cocaine.
That aside. Alleged sexual assault. And
maybe there won't be a season 2.
So we'll see. I mean, everything, and it bums me out because it bums me out because just don't do things to people. It's really very easy, but it also bums me out because I really like him as an actor. And it's just, it's one of those things where like, I thought he was great in this episode. And, it makes me, that's why I'm like,
just the one episode.
In this show, I'm sorry. But I was to say like those last 2 episodes, it made him like have this whole like different identity. Like he's very cool in the first 4 episodes. Like there's really like a cool vibe about him where he's dancing, he's on the groove, and he's kind of more of unsure of himself. He's still doing the stuff where he knows it's like he has this cool vibe about him, but he's more unsure of himself. And I thought he really played that really well of like first being cool and, you know, talking to his friends and you talk about the Backstreet Boys and they talk about Instinct, and he's very like charismatic and really carries it. I mean, it's not the level of like a Tom Cruise charismatic character, but it's still a good amount of charisma. And you know, like you said, there's not a lot of them in like a couple of the middle episodes, but at the end, you know, it's back to focusing on him. But now it's a focus of like not as much confidence. And I thought he really played that off well, where it's like you fake confidence. So you kind of go over the top doing stuff you think is cool, but you don't really portray it as well. And like there was a significant difference in that. So I thought he did a great job. I mean, I really thought his performance was like intriguing. It makes me like even more interested. I got this book like about a week ago before we finished the show. But it makes me even more intrigued. Is like, is Jake Edelson like actually this cool? Is that like how the memoir is going to be written? Because he seems like a cool dude.
Right. Ken Watanabe as the organized crime detective Hiroto Katagiri.
I mean, Ken Watanabe's always good. I mean, he's just kind of one of these, you know, he just has that look to him. And, you know, but there for him in this, it's kind of like always that detective. And I don't mean this in a bad way, but all those detectives going against the mob or going against any crime, it's just like there's only so much you can do. And then they know about you at one point or another. They know about your family, and they know you got a wife. You know, and the thing is, it's like, yes, that almost sounds like cheesy at points, but it's also true in how things actually work. It's like the mob works, organized crime works in a way where they do know everything about everyone. And, you know, he plays that thing where it's like, yeah, he has that level of like, I'm going to get these guys, but then it's like also this thing, like, how far can I get into it before they get into me? And then we find out they do. And he's pretty much, you know, he's got nothing to go on. And he's just great. So that's the thing where he portrays that character so well. Like the angst, he doesn't even have to say anything. You can just see it. You can feel it. Yeah. You can feel it with him.
Yeah, he's good for like body language acting.
Yeah.
Rachel Keller, Samantha, the hostess.
The hostess, I guess. / like business, hopefully entrepreneur.
Yeah.
You
former
know, Foreman. I think that's what they call them, Foreman.
Yeah.
No, like I said, I mean, you know, maybe it's this thing where I just really, really like this show, but insane amount of confidence, which I love. Like, you know, even when she was like nervous about people finding out about her doing this, starting her own business, like she still had that confidence. Like, yeah, let's smoke meth. We got to do this. Otherwise, if we don't, they're going to know about us and we have to get these things. And she's just so confident doing all these things. And that's like one of my favorite. Yeah. It's like one of my favorite scenes in this show is where they smoke meth, because it's just like she just takes a little hit and then Jake takes this massive hit of it and he is flying off the wall. And when he does like the headstand, I just like, I'm done. I was like, this is, you know, someone who's never done meth. I imagine it is a powerful drug. But I thought that was really, but there was like a good like rapport between them, you know, a good back and back. Like she wasn't going to take his shit. He wasn't going to take hers. And it was just, I thought it was a good banter.
Last one here, Sho Kasamatsu as Kasamatsu. Yeah, not Masu. Saito.
Best character in the show.
Really?
I really think like there was a thing about him where it was just like he did not want to do this. Yeah. And he was kind of forced into it because he had to. And then like when I was talking about the level of angst on the face, it's just like he portrays it the entire time. Like I think all this guy wanted to do was be like in a, you know, a J-pop band and just get the hell out, you know? And I really like it is that. And it's like it to me, like, and when I say the best character, I don't mean it's the best acted. I don't mean what I mean is like he's the one that makes the most sense of like he's forced into this. Everyone else chose to do what they're doing.
Well, he chose it too.
Well, he chose it too to some degree, but like you still are like once you're in it, you can't get out of it.
Sure.
And so he's in it, and then he realizes like what has happened, and like it's crazy. I thought that was just really well done. His just level of like sadness, but also like knowing what very sad character was just so intriguing, because it does remind you of like so many other things you watch when you watch mob movies, but not this kind of mob.
Right.
And not the way this is done. I mean, this is so different, but it's like you said, it's the same but different. And I know that's a weird phrase, but it is different there. And like Japan and Tokyo is such a big city. Like people don't realize how big cities outside of, New York are, but it's like Tokyo is 2 times the size of New York City. And
we'll do
and stuff like that, where it's crazy. And just the run that he had to go through.
Yeah. I mean, I like the character fine. Like I said, he was kind of the conduit into that, that world. New York City population in the 2022 census, 18,800,000. And then by comparison,
it's double, but Tokyo is still bigger, I believe.
Capital dropped. First decline since 1996, just under 14 million people.
Oh, I thought I had more people than New York. Well, I'm wrong there. My bad.
To just under. Yeah.
I'm probably thinking of another Asian city that we don't realize has 1 billion people in it, and then always does.
Shanghai.
That's what I'm thinking.
Beijing.
Okay. One of those. I knew one of them had like a huge population.
21 million Beijing.
I just can't believe so many people still live in New York.
Well, the other thing too is let's look at this for a second. Again, we did this with the trailer reaction. People tuned in for the Tokyo Vice review. They didn't realize.
Yeah, you want consensus stats. You came to the right place.
You didn't know you were going to get a geography lesson. New York City square miles.
I would say density is always a thing too. Yeah, but think about that.
302.6 square miles for New York City. So that was, how many was there? 18 million, I think I said.
Yeah. Yep.
And then Tokyo is 242 square miles and has 14 million. So it is a good deal smaller. Mm-hmm. It is it's about 60 square miles smaller than New York City and has only 4 million less people.
Whoa.
And that's what the thing is, and it's kind of portrayed within the show that you don't have a lot of room there.
No.
And I think that's shown. Actually, I kind of thought that they didn't do a great job of showing that. Now, again, this is like 1999.
Right.
Like now you have an apartment. It's like as big as my dining room that I'm sitting in right now. You know what I mean? It's
right.
You have no room in it, and they have to be very economical with their space and things of that nature. But that's maybe neither here nor there.
I will just say, I looked up the 25 cities with the highest population density per square mile in the world.
Okay.
Number 1, Manila, Philippines, 119,600 people per square mile.
That
wild. Is insane.
That's pretty packed.
Only city in the world with more than 100,000. Yep. Philippines ranks 1, 2, and 3, and 7.
There you have it.
There you go.
Geography.
There you go. You didn't
Geography.
Know you were coming? Here you go. Population density. You learned something. I bet everybody learned something right now. And that's what we're all about.
What would you give season 1 Tokyo Vice?
8.0.
8.0? Yeah, I think I'm good with that.
Yeah, I really like it.
I'm good with that. Yeah, 8 out of 10. Season 1. If you have HBO, check it out. It's 8 episodes. It moves. All right. Let's talk about Survivor.
Let's do it.
Survivor, the Battle Royale, the Do or Die twist returns to Survivor 42, and the Do or Die twist castaways choose whether they want to compete in the immunity challenge. The first survivor out will play the Do or Die at Tribal Council. They'll choose one of 3 boxes, 1 with a flame and 2 with skulls. If they pull the flame, they are immune from the vote and have a chance or have safety, and a regular tribal event happens. if they pull the skull, they are immediately eliminated. No advantages, no idols, no twists. Do not pass go. Do not collect $200. Lindsay and Jonathan are the sole competitors, and Jonathan outlasts Lindsay just long enough to earn the immunity necklace. With the question of tribal being up in the air, all parties scramble to make their votes count. Drea tells Omar she intends to use the knowledge's power advantage to steal Mike's immunity idol and vote him out of the game. However, Omar turns the tables and tells Mike of the plan 30 minutes before tribal council. Lindsay at the do or die challenge pulls the flame and is safe, and Dre uses her knowledge's power advantage unsuccessfully as Mike slipped his idol into Omar's possession before tribal council. Drea is voted out, and a very awkward torch snuffing ceremony ensues. So, Survivor.
To me, this was my favorite episode.
Okay.
Because it was just like, it was the two like true people that should be competing. Because I think Jonathan and Lindsay are the best at like actual competing. And if you had to actually survive and not like talk about shit, those two would survive. That's where I'm at. I'm talking like actual survival of the fittest, not survival of like the wittest. And and so that was cool to see them go up. Now she made a bad choice. I 100%, but it worked out. It ended up working. I was hoping so much it would work out for her, because I hope both of them end up on the challenge. MTV's The Challenge, hosted by
I
our.
don't think she will.
I hope that somehow she does, though, because she's great. I mean, she's a dietitian. I mean, she's in great shape. So it's like one of those things where she could do it. I don't think she will either, but I would like to see her. Jonathan is definitely like someone that needs to be on.
Yeah, but I don't think he will either.
I don't think he will. I just want to see. I just want to see more of them, because I actually like them a lot. Just because I like that competitiveness. So that was, whatever. That was whatever challenge. I mean, that's insanely, to do whatever you're doing there, stand there the way you're doing, balancing yourself, all that stuff. But all this stuff that happens before they actually get to the final thing of what the do or die, was so sneaky and weird. And, I don't know about the show, if it's scripted, if it's not scripted, whatever. I cared one time when the show was boring, but this episode was so fun and hilarious, like funny and hilarious to me, the way it ends up, where like Drea was so pumped and confident. She's like, yeah, I got Mike in this hole. And like, everyone thought Mike was done. And then, he slipped it. And I didn't know you could do these things.
Yeah.
Because, I didn't know you could just like slip your thing and do all that stuff. If you have something, you just give it to someone. I had no idea. I thought you had to hold on to that. So I thought that was really cool. I like that, because I feel like that's the way the game should be played.
Yeah.
And so I thought that was really, really cool. The thing I will say that I was not like huge on is all the talking at the end. Like Jeff, I understand that that's what he wants to do in this show, and like talk and talk and talk, and you got to make it an hour-long episode. Yeah,
they dragged it out.
But this was too long of that. That was the only thing I took away from this being like a perfect episode of this kind of show. Was I literally couldn't listen anymore. I just kind of stared at the screen, and like I knew people were talking, but I had no idea. But I thought it was a really good episode. I thought, I'm not sad to see Drea leave. I mean, it's just one of those things where it's like, whatever. I mean, I've stated who my two favorites are, and that's where I'm at.
Yeah, I would say I knew that she was going to pull the immunity one, because when they went to tribal council, I paused and I saw there was 20 minutes left in the show, and I was like, okay.
Yeah.
But then I was starting to think like, damn, Jeff's really dragging this out. Maybe she does go home.
Right.
Or go to the jury, whatever. But, I felt like, so I don't, like you said, I don't know if it's scripted, but at times it feels like they are catering to people that they know are going to be more popular. And what I mean by that is that challenge was set up for Jonathan to win.
Well, yeah.
I mean, like as soon as you look, like there's nothing, you don't have to be, it's not like they had to solve a puzzle quick. You know what I mean? Like it was stamina. Like that's his wheelhouse, So I do wonder about that a little bit sometimes. I did enjoy the scrambling. I think as far as the tenets of the game are outwit, outlast, and outplay. And I think Jonathan has done a good job of outplaying people from the challenge perspective. However, his social game's not super strong.
No.
And he's not a great tactician. And that's why I think right now Omar is in like the pole position.
Omar is definitely in the pole position.
He orchestrated this, but it's going to look like Mike is the one with the blood on his hands. Although Drea called him out and said, like, Omar was the only person I told.
Yeah.
So, and Omar basically orchestrated the blind side of high and all of that. So I think that he's like quietly playing the villain role really nicely. And I think that right now, if it went to the end, I think that people are going to have a hard time beating him. Romeo's nothing. It's really like it's Romeo and Marianne are just like, Marianne's a nice story. I forget Romeo is on the show most of the time.
I honestly, when I saw him on today's episode, I swear, and I'm watching this by myself at home.
Right.
I was just like, I like forgot his name. Right. I was like, who is this guy? Like, I literally forgot who he was. Who he was.
Right. So it's really a 4-person game, I would say, between Mike, Omar, Lindsay, and Jonathan.
Sure. Yeah.
The only thing that Marianne and Romeo are going to do at this point is just kind of be numbers.
Right.
For blind sides and stuff. So I think as much as they keep saying, okay, we have to get Jonathan out, I do think in the back of their minds, they are starting to realize this guy's not a strategic threat at all. So It's maybe not super imperative to get him out.
If you look the way Jonathan looks, you can't also have the wit. That's unfair.
Johnny Bananas?
Johnny Bananas does not look like Jonathan. Wes is not. Okay. Wes can promote his Instagram all he wants. Wes is just skinny and he lifts weights.
Right.
Jonathan is
a
Thor.
Demigod. Yeah.
Yeah. Jonathan is Thor. So Wes likes to over promote himself. He's a skinny guy who lifts weights. Jonathan is a man Jonathan is a god amongst children. That's what he looks, just compared to other people. When he was just like, he's talking about his whole weight. Just real quick, he's like, I burn 2,000 calories a day if I'm just sitting here.
Yeah.
And it was just like, I have to eat so much. And like, they don't know. And just like when he's on there, like essentially the cross, you know what I mean? Not to like go sacrilege, but it's just like, it's just seeing his abs. It's just like, this guy is insane. Like, we are not the same person. Like, we aren't, like, we may all be human beings, but I am not of the same creation as Jonathan. Yeah.
So there's 6 left.
Okay.
And I believe that, I don't know if there's a finale date, but it usually doesn't last into June. But being that June 1st is on a Monday or on a Wednesday, it may. So we're probably looking at 2, no more than 3 more weeks of Survivor. So we got that going for us, which is nice.
Good.
Go
Jonathan. Still rooting for you, but I don't think you're going to win.
Yeah, Jonathan is quite the specimen, but we will move on to Top Chef for the quick fire challenge. The chefs were asked to take on fajitas, with the reward of $10,000 on the line. Quick fire master and the Mississippi baker Nick Wallace made his own tortillas to the tune of $10,000 for the elimination challenge. Get in, nerds. We're going to space. Chefs had to make a dish capable of being sent to the International Space Station for astronauts to be able to consume in zero gravity. Buddha won the challenge with a coconut mousse with berry compote and a tropical salsa. And his dish will inspire a dish that will be launched into space soon. However, Houston, Chef Jay Jung had a problem with her bulgogi.
I'm not really sure.
Okay. With gochujang barley being overly mushy and not properly conceptualized, she was told to pack her knives and was sent to the dark recesses of the Last Chance kitchen.
I think this is our last person that cuts the fat.
Ashley.
Well, the thing with Ashley, she's already been cut the fat. We know she's going. It was just she came back. I don't count people that come back. Because they're going to end up going again. I mean, I don't think anyone's ever done Last Chance Kitchen and won.
I don't know. I
don't think so. I could be wrong. Like, it's been a lot of seasons. I could be wrong, but I don't think so. I think someone's made the final, but I don't think anyone's ever won. I think. Ashley's fat's been cutted, and now we're just seeing it, waiting for her. She kind of just always slips by. It's like hilarious to me, actually, because she doesn't make anything that like is overly appealing. It's just like, oh, you were okay. But Jajang, it's just, she's always kind of had this thing where like she made that really good sauce, and that like set her apart for a little while. But now it's like she doesn't cook things always properly, and she always complained. Like she's always like, I thought I cooked it well, and she even said after this, at least everything was cooked properly, and it's like,
right,
it wasn't. And to me, it's one of those things where we had discussed in a couple episodes ago. It's like, just because you think it's cooked well doesn't mean it's cooked well. Like, you may like the texture or something, but that doesn't mean it's cooked right. Like I like my steak cooked a certain way. That doesn't mean that like the overall group of people I'm around want their steak cooked that way. You have to cook your food in a way that other people are going to enjoy it. And that's one thing that I feel like I could see coming with her, because a lot of times there other things were wrong. It just happened that other people had worse mistakes,
right?
Or she had something that was really good, like her sauce or something. Mm-hmm. So that's what stuck out to me about her. So it wasn't shocking to me. I mean, Nick Wallace seems, it's him. To me right now, I think it's either, it's either Nick or it's Buddha. I think Buddha is like one with a bullet for me right now on this. I don't think, unless he really screws up, I'd be so shocked if he lost. I really would be. I think this would be a major, major upset.
Yeah, the website that I consistently go to for the recap, just when I'm doing our write-up, thinks that Evelyn will win. But to me, it's kind of, Buddha and Nick seem, and then DeMar had a really off week, and I was really surprised that it wasn't him. And I think that kind of like what you were talking about is the reason why it wasn't him, was even though he didn't perform his best on this episode, he has been consistently above average the whole time. And Jay was kind of riding a wave a little bit. And I think that there's a good chance that her dish actually may have been better, but this was kind of a body of work decision more so than anything else, even though this is one of those, that it's not.
Yeah. This is one of those rare times for me on Top Chef where like usually you're only as good as your last meal. But I think and this is actually where it is almost as like, I think she is only as good as her last meal. I don't think she's that good at doing these kind of things. She might be a great chef in the kitchen in her workplace, but I don't think she's that good under this kind of pressure, because she hasn't really.
Correct me if I'm wrong. She just won the last episode. She
won the last episode, but it wasn't to me like that. I always say that episode after Restaurant Wars is not a stressful episode, and it's one of those things where it's like, it's always a crapshoot on an episode. It always is, and and I think it almost fit perfectly. It's like, that wasn't a stressful episode. She won. This was a stressful episode, and she just couldn't do it. She couldn't handle it. Thinking Evelyn's going to win, it's the hometown person. It's just, I think for me personally, and I know, initially I was like, okay with her attitude. It's too much for me now. I will say it's too much. And I don't want that every time, because it's like anything, once you consistently act like that, it becomes fake to me.
Yeah.
And that's where I'm now with her. And so it's like, the thing I really like about Buddha is like, he's just confident. Like, it's just like, I know I'm doing things well, but it's not cocky. It's this thing is like, I came on the show because I think I'm a good chef and I want to prove this. And like, he tries to go above and beyond, and he succeeds because he has that kind of confidence in him. So that's why I think that.
Yeah, and I would say that it is more, like you said, confidence than him being cocky. He doesn't really exude, like in a negative way, some of those characteristics as maybe some of the other chefs, but I do think that he carries himself as just like, he strikes me as just like, okay, here's the task. And he goes, okay, this is what I'm going to do. And then he just does it. And he's willing to take risks. And more often than not, he pulls it off.
Yeah.
So
his idea in his head turns out exactly how he pictured it. Exactly. Every time.
Yeah. So we're down to what, 5, I think?
Yeah.
DeMar, Nick, Evelyn, Buddha, and Ashley. So we'll be.
Ashley's out. I mean, like, we don't,
somebody's
like,
coming back though.
Yeah, somebody's coming back. So we'll have 6, but Ashley's out. I just, unless there's a challenge where it's like literally they're at her restaurant and they can only cook the meal that she makes.
Right.
She's out. I guess unless someone gets shot and they can just move it on, but she's done. I'm done with her. I need her out of this show.
Wow, that's harsh.
It's just because she's not good. She just isn't. And I actually don't like Last Chance Kitchen. I don't like that, but I think when you're done, you should be done.
Fair enough. Media recommendations.
Okay. I'll start off with the weirdest one that I do. I just been watching tennis YouTube videos. Because I'm playing. Yeah. Well, I hope to join a tennis club this summer, just for the summer. Keep myself active in a different way. That mobility at our age, Breton, I want to be able to move laterally better and keep everything going. So blog, YouTube, tennis. There's a lot out there. They're great. I don't have any recommendations on like specific ones. But I like service videos and like serve and volley videos. I just like those. Under the Banner of Heaven, which we watched we're
gonna review that.
We're gonna review that. Been watching that. I've enjoyed it
so far.
The 4th one came out tonight, Thursday. I think it's the 4th one.
There's 6.
I think there's 6. Yeah. And then just on the music end of things, that I'll go with who's been out and I just started listening to, because sometimes that's what I do. Phoebe Bridgers. I just started listening to her just randomly. It's one of those things now where I'm like in this weird spot where I just want to listen to things I haven't listened to. And I really like Phoebe Bridgers. It's alt rock. She has some really like slow songs. She has some fast songs. She's got a cool vibe about her. And then just from listening to another pod that I really liked, they interviewed the lead singer of this band, Sunflower Beam. And it's also alt rock. Their latest album just came out. If you like alt rock, I mean, I think you'd like both of these bands, or like Phoebe Bridgers and Sunflower Beam a lot. I needed to mix it up a little bit. I've been listening to a lot of pop, and this is obviously alt rock, so a little different. And then next week, Harry Styles' album comes out, so I'm geared up for that. What about you, Brendan?
I've been on a Young the Giant kick last week or so.
That's good. Yeah.
And I've been listening to the Batman Unburied podcast. There's the #1 podcast in the world.
There's 2 episodes of that, right now.
4. There's 4.
4. Okay, okay. So I had the first 2 downloaded. I haven't listened to it, but I'm gonna listen to it this weekend. I'm excited. Sounds awesome.
It's a different take. It's a much different take. He's an adult. He's not. So Bruce Wayne is voiced by Winston Duke, who plays M'Baku in Black Panther.
Yeah.
And he's a forensic pathologist, like not a coroner, but like a forensic analyst or whatever. And there's a new bad guy in town, and so, but his parents are still alive. In the first couple episodes here, and Lance Reddick plays the voice of Thomas Wayne. There's some other like name actors. The guy who plays Malfoy's dad, Lucius Malfoy. Is Jason Isaacs plays Alfred in this, and there's the bad guy, the Harvesters, voiced by Sam Witwer, who's been around, so it's pretty cool. I really enjoy it. It's creepy. It's very adult. There's a lot of coarse language through the first 4 episodes, but it's interesting and I like it. And I know they're going to be doing more with this sort of DC and Warner is doing more with these sort of audio drama podcasts with some of the other IP that they have. So, and so far this has been a good proving ground for that. So Tuesdays are when new episodes come out, and
Tuesdays. Okay.
They put 2 out per week so far. So there's 4 episodes.
All right. So I'm listening to it this weekend, so I will be able to comment it next week for sure.
Sure.
I'm excited about it. Yeah.
So the BXG podcast publishes every Friday at 9 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, 6 a.m. Pacific, 4 a.m. Hawaiian.
Aloha.
On Podbean, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon Music, Google Podcasts, and more. Catch us on social media, facebook.com/BXG Podcast, Instagram at BXG Podcast, at GTFills, at Y2B, Twitter at BXG Podcast, at GTFilson, at Y2B. And over on our YouTube channel, Trailer Reactions, we did a trailer reaction for an upcoming horror thriller movie that releases the same day as this podcast in limited theaters. It's called Shark Bait. And if we stay here, we'll be Shark Bait.
Shark Bait.
Yeah, I was waiting for you.
I'm sorry.
To finish.
It will be, if we stay here, we'll be Shark Bait. We'll also be flung up in the air by a shark. And don't look in the water for some reason. It's salt water. You can't drink it.
Yeah. Come on, man. You got to know better.
Amateur.
Discord, come hang out with us. Drop some memes. You're
memes.
You're invited. You are.
Also, just in case, like I have mentioned in my Instagram stories, if you want to support my Rolex LASIK fund, I'm accepting Venmo donations at Gregory-Filson. No less than $100, please. We got to get that fund up. If everybody that follows me donates $100, we get a nice little timepiece. So thank you, everyone, in advance. Thanks for listening to the BXG podcast.
Take care, friends.
Take care.